Yes, Divya. So on on behalf of Dr. Anjum Padyal, I would like to welcome Acharya Brahmadeo to the second day of our yoga philosophy as shared in Bhagavad-Gita and Patanjali Ashtang Yoga. We have all gathered here on Google Meet today from different time zones and from different cities, from different parts of the world to learn, to understand the philosophies of yoga as shared in one of the most ancient scriptures in our mythology of our country. And with the hope that we are going to inculcate these values in our life and it will help us transform us in a better way, lead a more fulfilling and happy lives. So I would like to invite Acharya Pramadev to begin his lecture for the day.
Namaste everybody, welcome. कहीं से echo आ रहा है? It's not from my side, no? Okay. So let's sit down straight, close the eyes gently. And while closing the eyes, pledge to yourself that while closing the eyes, I'm closing my mind to external thoughts and my heart to external emotions. Deep inhale and exhale. 3 times Om Jap, the universal sound, and 1 time Gayatri Mantra, and we'll start. Om ॐ भूर्भुवस्सुः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो न प्रचोदयात् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्ति. Join the palms together, rub them gently, cover the eyes, and slowly open the eyes below the palms. External light doesn't hit at our eyes, and the energy to the facial muscles. So welcome everybody. I'll do an introduction with one video. Oh, it's not coming. Yeah. Just give me 1 minute.
आचार्य जी कुछ हेल्प चाहिए? आपका माइक म्यूट है।
मैंने आपको एक लिंक भेजा है वीडियो का.
Okay.
I wanted to play the video. I'm not being able to present it. Just see if you can have it. I wanted to do the intro with it.
Okay.
It's not coming.
Yes, Divya is trying.
Okay, I don't think it's coming. Presentation is a bit heavy today. Okay, let's start. Otherwise, we can have it in the interval. Let's start. So, welcome everybody. Let's do a brief recap of what we covered yesterday. We covered the source of the knowledge about yoga, which flows from the Vedas, Upanishads up to the Yoga Darshan from Maharishi Patanjali, and with various interpretations, and that knowledge is also condensed in the Gita itself. We looked at the definition of yoga as yogaschitta vritti nirodha, the silencing of the mental activities. I usually also add the emotional activities, because when we are able to silence both the mental and emotional activities, then we can link to our true self. The definition of yoga from the root Sanskrit word yuj samadha, meaning to join, to unite, to link, to yoke. Then the meaning from the Bhagavad-Gita, samatvam yoga uchyate, the balanced state of mind, Gita Shlok 2.48. We also looked at how our body system is yoked, the yoga about the functioning of our body. The owner of the chariot, the soul, Atmanam Rathinam Vidde in the Kathopanishad. And if we look at the chariot driven by Sri Krishna Ji, where Arjun is the Savari, is the traveler, and he gives the direction to Sri Krishna Ji what to do and what not to do. So that orders come, and if the orders are correct, then only we can reach the destination safely. So the traveler orders the driver to the destination. This physical body is the chariot. The intellect, man, chit, is the driver, and it decides the route on the order from the traveler. The intellect commands the mind, buddhi, and the organs of perception are the reins that connect the driver and the horses. And the senses, taste, smell, sight, touch, and hearing are the path. So yoga tells us, brings us to that moderation in life, in whatever we do. And from that moderation, we'll be able to connect, realize our true self. As I said yesterday, behind this body, or over and above this body, there's the soul, call it the consciousness, or whatever name people may give to that. This is what makes the body moving, and once that leaves the body, the sharir dher ho jata hai, the body lays flat, and that returns to matter. So from that point of view, only a correct order from the traveler, from the owner, will lead to the proper destination. And we should remember the body, the mind, the intellect, man jisko kehte hain, all the sense organs are all jar padarth, inert entities. On themselves, they can't do anything. If they could have done something, then the dead body also should have been able to move. And that's the dilemma which Arjun faces. And from that dilemma which Arjun faces comes the knowledge of the Gita. In fact, the Gita is a conversation between another conversation. The conversation starts with Dhritarashtra asking Sanjay, what is happening on the battlefield? And there starts the Gita. So the overall benefits of translating the knowledge of the Gita in our day-to-day life. It will empower us to be focused on our subject matter in whatever be our pursuit, be it work, be it play, be it studies, any field of life. It's the question of we have to stop the fickle mind, the wavering mind overriding us. And if we look at the situation that Arjun finds himself, I can relate that to one sutra of yoga, which Maharshi Patanjali has beautifully described about the hurdles in yoga. Vyadhi, Styan, Shanshay, Pramad, Alasya, Avirati, Bhranti Darshan, Alabdha Bhumikatva, Anavasthitvani, Chitta Vikshepa, Antaraya. Chit Vikshepa. So destabilizes the mental state and then it starts impacting the body. These are the 9 hurdles. The first one is Vyadhi, physical imbalance, sickness. That can be from sickness and sickness can be physical, mental, things like that. Then Styan. Styan is playing truant in our practice. We practice for one day and we say, okay, let's give a break for 3 days and we'll start again. And starting on the 4th day, then we give a break of another 1 week. So that is Dhyan, playing truant. Then Sanshay. Sanshay when we are in doubt, and we see Arjun in doubt there, whether to act or not. Pramad is irresponsibility, unconcerned attitude. We don't see Arjun with an unconcerned attitude, but we see other fields of this sutra applying here. Alasya, little or no consideration to put up at utmost efforts to realize goals. And when Arjun is, the wavering mind is striking Arjun, then he has little consideration of the goals. He's only blinded by the relationships with people on the opposite side of his army. Avirati, this is extravagance, indulgence in the subject matter of our senses, which is not in this case. Then Bhranti Darshan is contrary knowledge. And the contrary knowledge in the Gita is Arjun sees these people as his relations, as his relatives. And beyond that, he can't see the soul, which is undying, immortal, and every death will result in Punarjanma. And that starts with the intro to the Bhagavad-Gita. It's given twice in the second shlok, Gita Dhyayana Shilasya, and it ends with Purva Janma Kritani Cha. So we are carrying forward all the karmas for which we've not yet reaped the results. And then the 5th shlok, which says, Gita Gangodakam Petva Punarjanma Na Vidyate. So when it talks about carrying forward the balance of karmas for which we've not reaped the results, the outcome, so it talks about rebirth, and their second line, it talks about when we apply the knowledge of the Gita in our day-to-day life. It's not only chanting or hearing to the chanting. It's the application of the knowledge, because when it's saying Gita Gangodakam, so Gita ke Ganga Dhyan Sagar mein dubki lagana. It's not only taking the knowledge from the book there, Otherwise, the library should have gone into moksha much before us. So we should understand it's the applied knowledge in our day-to-day life which will break that cycle of birth and death. So that's Bhranti Darshan for Arjun, which he was facing. Then Alabdha Bhumi Kattva, failure. And this Alabdha Bhumi Kattva, it says here that when we try to reach some goals, we reach some distance, then we fall back to where we started. We again have to try, we try and try and try till we attain the goals that have to be realized. This is not the case here, but then the other one is anavasthitatva, letting go, absence of efforts to consolidate realization. And this is seen here. We've got the army ready, we've got everything ready, but then ignorance just take over, and when ignorance takes over, then the whole setup goes bust. And if we see in one of the books which I was reading in the preparatory for this session, it says when Arjun is saying शरीर कांप रहा है, मुंह सूख रहा है, रोंगटे खड़े हो रहे हैं, त्वचा में जलन हो रही है, मन में भ्रम की स्थिति है. So it gives the real picture of this sutra. व्याधिस्त्यान संशय प्रमाद आलस्य विरति भ्रांति दर्शन अलब्ध भूमिकत्व नवस्थित नवानि चित विक्षेप अंतराय. We can see most of the elements of this, the 9 elements that are defined, which are the hurdles to attain our objectives, apply in this scenario. Then what happens? Akarmanyata. That is reluctance to engage in the proper action. Nirasha. Desolation. Avishwas, loss of self-confidence. Atma glani, when you start putting yourself to blame. But then when the knowledge is unfolded, the situation changes. Arjun becomes energetic. He has his full confidence, gains back his full confidence. He has trust in his capabilities and goes to fight with all the luster, the brilliance of the warrior. So that is the yoga of knowledge with karma. Uniting knowledge with karma. And I concluded yesterday by saying Gita doesn't define separately free path to mukti or moksha. It's neither solely dhyan, neither solely karma, neither solely bhakti, which will lead us to the destination of breaking the cycles of punarjanma. We need a combination of the three. Yeah. In some people's life, we'll have probably the portion of karma is more, in some the portion of bhakti is more, in some the portion of jnana is more. But nevertheless, we need the three of them. Because when we talk about triguna, which is taken also in one of the chapters of Gita, the three characteristics of Prakriti, Sattva, Raja, Tama. In every single particle that is present in this universe, we have the three characteristics, the three gunas, Sattva, Raja, Tama. But then in some, Sattva is predominating, in some, Rajas is dominating, and in some, Tama is dominating. So likewise, dhyan, karma, and bhakti, the three of them are needed. Let's go into a brief of understanding the yoga philosophy, because my approach would be taking the various chapters of yoga and applying it, relating it to the philosophy of yoga by Maharshi Patanjali. So I would like to go into a bit deeper into the philosophy of Maharshi Patanjali, which we brushed yesterday. And as I said, Maharshi Patanjali defined yoga in the form of Ashtang yoga, the eightfold process: yama, niyama, asana, pranayam, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. So yama and yama, the precepts of social and personal discipline, these are the two initial steps. If we skip that, then we may say we are achieving this and this and this, but then we've lost the initial steps, and it's really tough to reach the ultimate goal of samadhi. And yama, social discipline; niyama, personal discipline; asana, body posture; pranayama, breath control; pratyahara, introversion of the senses; dharana, concentration and cultivating awareness; dhyana, meditation; samadhi, self-realization and God realization, when communion, atma, Paramatma se jud jata hai, and that is the final aim of yoga. Within yama, we'll find ahimsa, satya, steya, brahmacharya, aparigraha. Ahimsa, non-violence, and we see that war is here as the last resort. Satya, truth, and satya, jaise jana, vaise manna, or vaise कहना, that is how if we witness to any event, we have to build our belief that this is the event that we witnessed and keep it true 100%. अपने मिर्च मसाला नहीं add करना है. And then when we have to relate that, we be true to the occurrences. Asteya, non-stealing. And asteya, non-stealing, we often think that taking something which is just lying here is not stealing. But then there's always an owner, and when the owner comes, he gets stressed. So asteya, non-stealing, it should be by way of thoughts, by way of words, and by way of deeds. By way of thoughts is that if I'm contemplating on some philosophy, I should give due recognition to where I started learning that. Though I can expand on that, but I should always recognize the base of that. Then in words, often we find people quoting from references from so many texts, but fail to say that I am quoting, as if the knowledge is theirs. So that is also stealing. Then the common stealing which we find is in the virtual world of today is downloading of programs and software for which we don't pay licenses. So that we should be careful if you want to go on the path of yoga, and that comes also in the Gita. Then brahmacharya is celibacy and study of the scriptures, and we find the Gurukul Parampara both in the Ramayana and the Mahabharata, where the princes go to the Gurukul and learn there. Then aparigraha, non-hoarding, non-accumulation of superfluous things. This is one of the causes of the Mahabharata, one of the major causes, when Duryodhan says, not a needle point. Sui ki nok ke barabar zameen nahi dega Pandavon ko. He has more than enough, but yet he doesn't want to share. And we should see in this world all the problems the world is facing nowadays. Pollution, global warming, etc., is because of the tendency to use more than what we require to live a decent life. So aparigraha and aparigraha can be seen in daily life. आज का जो शॉपिंग क्रेज है ना, टेल एनीबडी व्हाई आर यू गोइंग आउट शॉपिंग, क्या खरीदना है, बस देख लेंगे, वहां पहुंच करके फिर खरीदेंगे. I'll go there and then from there I'll decide. No, that is parigraha. We really don't need these things, but we are just buying, and we are not buying to please ourselves. We are buying kyunki log kya kahenge. It's more, we are living a life not for ourselves. और फिर योग, one of the purpose of yoga is dukhon se chhotna, and that is also taken by Sri Krishna in the Gita. Dukhon se chhotna, the fight is there to stop the atrocities of the Kauravas. So aparigraha is a very important concept, especially in the world of today. If we've faced, I will take the example of what's happening now in the world. COVID has spread so much in spite of all the government's warnings across the world to stay at home. People have got the tendency to go out. Yoga says you go inside. But people have got the habits of the consumerism society just going out and with no purpose. And that is both not complying to ahimsa, that is violence to myself and to the society at large, not complying to truth, then not complying to aparigraha. Then Sauch, Santosh, Tapa, Swadhyay, Ishwar Pranidhan. Sauch, purity, cleanliness, body, mind, and spirit. And often we find people say, okay, I'm going for prayers. He's had a bath and he's had everything. Just listen to what they discuss, discussing things which are unrelated totally to the prayers they are going to do, and that is not complying to Soch. There is no purity of mind there. And following mind is not pure, to spirit be pure nahi rahega. Then Santosh, be content. That is a very, very important thing in life. If we learn to be content, we'll start living life with the essentials and not with the superfluous. And we'll be happy with the things that we have, and we won't be unhappy for the things that we don't have. Then Swadhyay, the study of the scriptures, very important because this gives the anchor on the living values of human life. And Ishwar Pranidhan, submission to God. And we find that, I said it yesterday, Arjun, when he was faced with that wavering mind, he couldn't decide what to do. He just surrendered to the knowledge that was given to him by Sri Krishna. And then Sri Krishna became his charioteer. It's the same thing. If we surrender to the laws of nature, to the comply to the teachings of the scriptures, then we'll find God leading us, leading our way to realize our objectives. And this is what we see in the Gita. Starts with the problem of Arjun. He puts down the arms, the ammunitions, listens to the knowledge, clears his doubt, and then he requests Sri Krishna to take his seat again as charioteer and go into the war, and there it ends with victory. So if we want to be successful in life, let's adopt the concept of Ishwar Pranidhana in life. Then all the actions reveal our commitment to either comply or to trespass the values. It's either through thoughts, manasa, through speech, vacha, or through karmana, our physical actions. It can be either any one of them or any combination of the three. It can be two of them, any two of them, or it can be the three of them. Like if we see manasa, thoughts, if we read the Mahabharata, we'll find that the Pandavas were always in the thoughts that for whatever little we may have, let's be satisfied with that. But that little also was not given to them. So in thoughts, they were pure. In Vacha, let's see what Draupadi said to Duryodhan, Anda ka beta andha. So that was violence in words. Then Karmana, physical actions, the disrobing of Draupadi. So these are examples that we can take and learn from the scriptures where we have to be careful in life. You have to be careful at the three levels. Then the next three levels, I mentioned it briefly yesterday, is either what we do or what we order or suggest people to do, and then for what we give the consent. Krit Karit Anumodit. That is defined by Maharishi Patanjali. And Krit Karit Anumodit, Krit, what is done by people, we find the harassment by the Kauravas. Karit, we find them planning to destroy the Pandavas by the house, by the castle made in wax. Then Anumodit consent, we find the silence of the gurus when Draupadi was disrobed. So adherence to yama niyama contribute to the process. And Ashtang Yoga is mentioned by Sri Krishna in the Gita. And if we need to comply to the teachings of the Gita, let's comply to the teachings of the Gita in terms of manasa, vacha, karmana. Let's link, join the three of them. Then let's join also what we do, what we give, share as ideas, opinions, or what we do as coercion to others to do something, or what we, wherever we have to give our consent. Let's act according to the teachings of the Gita. That is another level of yoga. The first level of yoga, linking, joining, was manasa vacha karmana, and the second is krit karit anumodit. Let's look at the causes of himsa to understand ahimsa. Lobe, greed, more, inordinate attachment, infatuation, and krodh, anger. And yesterday there was a beautiful question about how we see Shri Krishna getting angry, and I made the difference there between Manu and Krodh. Manu is the anger against the wrongdoings, not against the wrongdoer, but Krodh is against the wrongdoer. So non-violence is giving up greed, giving up more, inordinate attachment, infatuation, giving up krodh, anger. Let's put this yardstick against what we've understood as non-violence from what we've heard and read everywhere. Violence due to greed. It can be greed for money, urge to satisfy, and mostly it's the urge to satisfy the senses, the sense organs. Taste, smell, touch, hearing, etc., etc. And it's done through irrational exploitation of resources. The consumerism society is a violence to nature. Then there's ill treatment of people by people, physical abuse, mental torture, and then one form of violence is the killing for the sake of trade and crime. And here one thing comes to my mind, which says, if slaughterhouses would have had walls in glasses, windows, then nobody would have agreed to that trade. That's really violence. And then if we look at Krit Karit Anubodhit, because we say we are not killing, we are just buying, then that's one form of giving consent to kill. Violence due to anger, krodh. Anger disturbs the physical and mental balance of the person. An outburst leads to violent behaviors. Somebody is having a side conversation. Please mute your mic.
स्क्रीन शायद दूसरी कर लिया ये इधर से आ रही है इधर से आ रही ओके
So anger disturbs the physical and mental balance of the person. And we see that in day-to-day life. Anger due to attachment, arrogance, ego, obsession, self-centeredness. Clinging to the things till the last minutes in our lives. And we see that daily. Then one form of violence due to attachment is trespassing over others' rights to favor somebody whom I know, or to favor some relative. That is violence due to attachment. And corruption, injustice, all these are violence due to attachment. That is hinsa. So if we need to understand ahimsa, we need to see how hinsa is being performed, and Patanjali leads us to that. And Sri Krishna also, if we go into a deep study of the Gita and the teachings, which, as we say, can be read in between the lines, often wrongly interpreted, out of context. But if we read the Gita within the context, within the flow, जैसे कहते हैं ना, Shabda Artha Sambandh. Know the words, know the meanings of the words, but put it into the proper context. That is the science of language. And if we do that, we'll be complying to ahimsa. It says, Patanjali Maharshi says, ahimsa pratisthayam tatsannidho vairatyaga. Adopting non-violence will realize the causes and outcomes of violence through previous personal experiences or through history and the occurrences around us. Let's acknowledge Ishwar God, the laws of nature, the super force or the super energy as the universal creator, father and mother, which Shri Krishna says into the Gita. The Gita is to foster love, compassion, impartiality, the spirit of brotherhood, self-control, humane qualities. Question is how brotherhood comes when it's fighting for its rivals, sibling rivalry in the Gita. No. It fosters brotherhood because the last effort to bring peace was done by Sri Krishna himself. He became the mediator as last resort. But then when the other party doesn't listen, then it becomes inevitable. Ahimsa pratisthayam tat sannidho vairatyaga. We'll be able to develop what is called in Sanskrit Atmavat Vyavahar, which is given in the Vedas, Yajurveda 36th chapter, Mitrasya Chakshusha Samiksha Mahi. Let's look at all living creatures in this world as friends. That will enable us to be virtuous at all times, to be righteous at all times, to think, speak, and do things wholeheartedly, not with a dual feeling. We'll be at peace with ourselves, with our friends and relatives, and with the whole world. We'll be in total harmony with happiness starting from us and radiating all around us. And the Divya Swarup which Krishna shows to everybody is that divinity within which we have, everybody has within himself. He's nurtured that to that maximum level and showed that to Arjun, this is our real self, when we unfold the divinity, the divine qualities within us. And if we look into the shlok which says, Yada yada hi dharmasya, it's often interpreted to say that God is going to take birth each and every time when atrocities increase in this world. But really, look at that point in time. Krishna is giving the knowledge, is giving the guidance. The battle is fought by Arjuna and the Pandavas to realize the objectives of re-establishing dharma. So is it the work of one person or multiple persons there? And at all times, if we are able to connect to the self, which yoga brings us to, listen to the inner voice, to the divine guidance, we'll be able to link with the knowledge that God is giving to us at every single moment in our life. And if we act accordingly, that is Krishna giving us the knowledge and will be the Arjuna in our life. Understand that part. This is the yoga of Gita in daily life. And this is what Maharshi Patanjali also says when he's talking about Ishwar Pranidhan. Satya, known by observation, and the beauty of the Vedic Hindu philosophy gives 8 standards of proof. Pratyaksha, Anuman, Praman, till the negation point. 8 standards of proof to be able to take cognizance of what is true and what is not true. By observation, by inference, by authority, by the existence, and also by the non-existence of things. Then by the logical conclusion of events, and by the logical conclusion of the flow of knowledge, etc., etc. And this is how science works. This is how things are invented in this world. So there's also the need for daily introspection. If had the Pandavas and the Kauravas done their self-introspection, there wouldn't have been the war of the Mahabharata, and we would have been in possession of the knowledge of the Gita. But then it's there. Things happen and the knowledge is unfolded to us. Let's use that knowledge. Let's measure each and every activity of our life gradually, slowly. When we go into yoga, before embarking on any action, we'll be able to do an analysis of that. And at the end of the day, we'll probably take 4 or 5 events to analyze and to look. And this is where we'll go into the sense of truth, not to hurt others, telling it in a very gentle way, Priti Purvak Dharmanusar. The ways and means to be truthful: reading of the scriptures, keep company of honest persons, prayer, repentance, self-reprimand. मैंने कोई गलती किया, किसी ने देखा नहीं, लेकिन मैं स्वयं अपने आप को दंड दूं. And it is simple. एक समय में one way of giving self-reprimand. मुझे जो चीज पसंद है उसको 10 दिन में नहीं खाऊंगा. जैसे मुझे खीर पसंद है, I love eating खीर. Take one example. It's not what I'm telling, I'm just giving an example. I like eating kheer. I'll say, okay, as a self-reprimand, for 1 month, I'll abstain from eating that. That is one way. And that brings us to the point that we'll realize next time I won't repeat the same mistake. Whether it's complying to ahimsa, satya, steya, brahmacharya, parigraha, sauch, santosh, tapaswadhyaya, and all these. So that brings us to the point where we can correct our lives. And this is where Duryodhan failed. And this is where even Bhishma, Pitama, and Dronacharya failed. And they were beaten down in the war. Satya pratisthayam kriya phala rayatam. It says to be true to oneself. That equals to capacity building, because when we are true to ourselves, We empower ourselves with self-assurance, fearlessness, serenity, positivity. It gives us the potential to rise after each failure. Let's view each failure as Arjun stepping down from the chariot. And truth connects us, empowers us to take our seat again in the chariot and go for the goal. So that's honesty and will lead us to worldly and spiritual bliss. Asteya non-stealing, which I brushed about, taking anything without the consent of the owner, deceit, embezzlement, false pretenses. Then there's physical theft of tangible and intangible virtual things. And the cause of leading to stealing is usually greed, lobe, infatuation more, and inordinate attachment to either friends and relatives. This is where we do things that shouldn't be done according to righteous conduct. We should understand the law of karma, that nothing will go without us paying the price for it. Non-stealing leads us to be intelligent, virtuous. It promotes charity, compassion, purity of mind, body, and spirit. Honest initiatives to serve the poor and spread social justice and happiness. Asteya pratisthayam sarvaratna upasthanam. Once we accept God as the omnipresent, the omniscient, we shall integrate Asteya into our life because we know God is looking upon us 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And this is the Divya Swarup which Krishna shows to Arjun. And this is where also he tells Arjun that for whatever we do in life, at the end of the day, we are going to reap the results, but just do your duty. Just be dutiful. So if we are complying to Asteya, we'll be able to keep to the line of duty. It prompts us to realize material and spiritual wealth are the two tracks of the same railway line. Let's reduce our wants and prioritize on our needs. As we say, there's enough in the world for everybody, but not enough for the greed of the few. Brahmacharya is preservation, consolidation of life force, judicious use of vital energy. To acquire knowledge, to strike the right balance in life, and that is yoga, striking the right balance, mental, moral, physical, spiritual balance. To be true and sincere to the self, to cultivate fearlessness, impartiality, tolerance, self-control, and regular practice leads to strength to be resilient in face of adversities. Brahmacharya Pratisthayam Virya Labha. This is given by Maharshi Patanjali. Acquire true knowledge about Ishwar Ji Prakriti. And this is also given by Sri Krishna when he talks about Sankhya Yoga. It gives a better understanding of the true meaning of yoga. The purpose of whatever we plan, whether it's day-to-day life, whether it's prayer time, whether it's meditation time, it's always done with a goal. Like meditation is to seek connection to the inner self, to be at peace with oneself and with the whole world. Prayers meant that we put up our physical, mental efforts. We need the push to reach our goals. So these are the things which Brahmacharya leads us to. Proper channeling of the vital life force leads us to that state of buddhi, medha buddhi, which we pray in Gayatri Mantra, Dhyoyona Prachodayat. And it enables us to distinguish between truth and untruth, right and wrong, virtue and vice, assert in our duties, shun negligence, that creates a conducive environment for a better world. Aparigraha, non-accumulation of superfluous things, that leaves us to be content with what we have, to avoid shortages, black marketing, and to avoid economic violence to society. And Maharshi Patanjali defines aparigraha sthairya janma kathan tat sambodha. Aparigraha is less words, less worries, less sufferings, less wants, and increased happiness. Our body, mind, and spirit will be in the balanced state, that is yoga, and will not fall prey to greed, extravagance. Such cleanliness, I think I've been able to cover that throughout. But remember, in Soch, there's one thing, Jaisa Ahar, Vaisa Vichar, Jaisa Vichar, Vaisa Vyavahar. So Soch, just be careful, not only on physical purity, but mental. What we consume that goes inside us and is going to build us. Remember, the baby is born to that size, and then it's food which enables the body to grow, and the input will give us the equivalent output. That's why when we talk about the free gunas, we say, let's keep towards more sattvic diet. Okay, I said all the things, all the elements in this world have the three components, sattva, rajatama. But when we seek for sattvic diet, where there's less violence to other forms of life, the strict minimum violence, and that sattvic food enables us to be sattvic in our thoughts, in our words, and in whatever we do. Cleanliness, important not only in brushing our teeth, having a bath, change clothes, but to be clean at the level of the mind by acquiring right knowledge. And the Gita is there are the Shastra of right knowledge. Souch, physical and mental, taming down our inordinate infatuation. It says, Souch swang jugupsa parai sansarga. Over and above internal cleanliness, flushing out disturbing thoughts and emotions. And this is what Arjun does when getting the knowledge. He flushes out the disturbing thoughts and emotions. So it's attachment, hatred, passion, anger, attraction, delusion, all these gone. And when these are gone, we can see clearly what are the real goals of life. Then Sattva Shuddhi Saumanasya Ekagraha Indriya Jai Atma Darshan Yogatvani Cha. So Yama Niyama will lead us to cleanliness, purity of mind, body, and spirit. Purification of the physical body, the subtle mental essence, just as mentioned yesterday, over and above the Panch Dhyanendriya and Panch Karmendriya, the five senses of perception and the five organs of actions, we have the subtle organ which is mana. And we'll be able to control mana. And controlling mana is as good as man is the car which is in the parking. Without the driver, it can't go anywhere, and the soul is the driver. लोग जब कहते हैं ना मन नहीं करता है या मन ये करने के लिए पुश कर रहा है, no, it's all the soul which has the control. We'll be able through yoga to control that, and we'll see that when we'll go into the chapters of the Gita. Then santosh is satisfaction. It leads us to make optimum use of our physical and mental faculties. Effective and efficient use, because Santosh, satisfied with the fruits of our efforts, whatever is outstanding, let's leave it on the account of selfless nishkam karma, and the fruits will come to us in due time by a better birth in the next life, or probably punarjanma stops, rebirth stops, and we be in moksha mukti. Maharshi Patanjali says, Santoshad anuttama sukhalabha. So the attitude of contentment will increase our levels of happiness, stress-free living, and also will be less affected by adversities in life. And we'll relate that when we go one by one of the chapters of the Gita. We'll be left with 4 more sessions. There are 18 chapters of the Gita. I'll try to cover 4 to 5 chapters. So we'll finish everything in the 4 sessions left. Then tapa is developing resilience. Living a life with a degree of austerity is essential. Then when adversities face us, we can face these adversities. If you look at the Gita, the Mahabharata, the Pandavas faced so many adversities, they developed resilience to that. And that's why when Yudhishthir became king, he was known as a righteous ruler. Otherwise, the general tendency in the world of today, once a ruler achieves his objectives, the first thing he tries to do is personal aggrandizement, both materially, mentally, and socially. So will tapa empowers us to mind our habits, our body language, and not to give way or subdue to temptations. Kaya indriya siddhi ashuddhi kshaya tapasa. So tapa, training of our body, will lead us to better self-control, to be better balanced, equanimity in both failures and success, in man and apman, whether name or shame, and will be unshakable to stand and fight for dharma, for truth, for righteousness. That increases our stamina, whether it's physical, mental, or spiritual, and it directs us to engage in life with more positivity and closer to the divine, to the divinity. Tapa helps us to burn all the desires. And remember, Maharshi Patanjali says, Na tapasvina yoga siddhyati. Austerity is a must to attain the final goal. And the austerity in the Gita is one, the patience of Arjuna to listen to the knowledge, to digest that knowledge, and to apply it irrespective of whether, because he didn't know whether he's going to win or he's going to fail, but he knew by having the right charioteer, he was most confident that he's going to win. So that's applying these theories in life. Then Swadhyay enables us to read, understand the concepts, and when we understand the concepts, we are not going into blind faith. The world today is overpowered by superstitions, by fake news. And whatever we read, probably on WhatsApp, on Google and everything, we tend to take it as being the truth. But if we do swadhyaya of the scriptures, we'll be able to develop the discerning mind, the discerning attitude. And we'll be able to easily sift from the very first few lines. We'll say, okay, this needs to be discarded. Instead of just forwarding whatever message we're receiving will analyze before forwarding any single thing in life. Then another tool empowering us in Swadhyay is jap. Jap, we can use mantra, and remember, Maharshi Patanjali says, Tad japas tadartha bhavanam. Jap should be done with understanding of the mantra that we are using for jap. And that helps us to connect to that. And jap, how it contributes to Swadhyay is that when we do jap with one mantra, understanding that mantra, whenever we'll do Swadhyay, we'll also not only read the scriptures, but understand the nitty-gritties of it. And when we read the Gita, we'll understand that, and understand that with a purpose that it needs to be lived in life. That realizes too the inborn dormant force within us. And when we unfold that dormant force, just imagine what we can do. I always tell this when I do the lectures on yoga. The normal average person uses about 8 to 10% of the brain, and the genius uses about 12 to 15% of the brain. Now, unfolding that potential of the brain through asana pranayam, through the observation of yama niyama in our life, will focus and unfold that potential. If we unfold that potential an increment of 4% or 6%, 7%, we become genius. And if we've unfolded beyond that, we become the rishis. Then we can step, as we say, into the giant shoes of Sri Krishna. And this is what he did. Born as a human being with a human mind, with everything. But on the, as we say, yog ke balbute pe, on the strength of living a yogic life. That's why we refer to Sri Krishna as Yogiraj Sri Krishna. Whatever he realized was in the force of yoga. And Ishwar Pranidhan, surrender to God. I gave you the pictures yesterday of Arjun before and after the knowledge of the Gita. It says when you surrender to God, God leads your way. And he surrendered to the knowledge of the Gita, and Krishna led his way in that. Then that is where we reach the ultimate stage of yoga, dharana, dhyan, and samadhi. These are the internal aspects of yoga. The other things, yama, niyama, asana, pranayam, pratyahara, is to consolidate the other part. Once we've grown, we've gone to dharana, dhyan, and samadhi, with the practice of yam, niyam, etc., we are going to reach the ultimate point where Krishna is telling Arjun, these people in front of you, you see only the bodies, you don't see the soul. Just if you realize that they are souls, and each and every dying person is going to be reborn, every dying entity is going to be reborn. So that's the continuity of the journey of the soul. And this is what yoga leads us to. But remember, to attain that level of samadhi, we need viveka and vairagya. Vivek, the discriminating faculty of the intellect, knowledge transformed into wisdom, applied in our life, and that pushes us to vairagya, detachment from this world. And this is the ultimate point of yoga, dukkha se chotana. And remember, when we do Shanti Pat, Om Shanti, 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 the 3 times, it goes with the knowledge of Sankhya Darshan, Trividha Dukkha. It says, Atyanta Purushat, Atyanta nivaranarth. So the optimum level to stay away or to eliminate sufferings in life, the more and more we'll realize we'll move away from that. So that's the philosophy of Sankhya Darshan, which is in one of the chapter as Sankhya Yoga. I already talked about success and the other features. If you could play that video, if that can be done as an interval before I proceed further down the line. Now I'll start with a brief on the 18 chapters of the Gita. Can we get that link, that video, YouTube?
Yes, Acharyaji. The best
Yes,
time.
yes.
I am not able to play the video. I can, as in like, I can just probably play it on my phone and put my screen, if that helps.
Yeah, if that
I mean,
goes through, that's fine. It's bringing my. No, it's bringing you again.
I'm
There's a
sorry, what?
problem with presentation today in Google Meet.
Yeah, there is some issue. I cannot share screen. Mm, it's just showing broadcast.
Okay,
It's
let's
not.
just listen to the wordings of the video.
All right. Okay. So I'll just play the video then.
Yeah, just let's listen to the sound of it.
Hmm.
Close our eyes gently and listen to that, and listen forcefully to the wording of this video.
Okay.
मैं समय हूँ मेरा जन्म सृष्टि के निर्माण के साथ हुआ था मैं पिछले युगों में था इस युग में हूँ और आने वाले सभी युगों में रहूंगा अनंत काल से पृथ्वी पर राज करने की लड़ाई जारी है लाखों वर्ष पहले संसार में भीम सरक यानी डायनासोर जैसे अद्भुत जीवन का राज था पर काल चक्र के साथ वो न चल पाए
Okay, I think let's stop it because it's not
उनका
clear. We'll
अंत
try it
हुआ
tomorrow.
Okay.
Let's sit down straight and do some regain our energy after listening for so long. Let's give a pause to listening. Let's listen to the inner voice within ourselves. Sit down straight with the body totally relaxed. Relax the soul, the heels, the legs, the thighs, the hips, the abdominal muscles, the muscles of the back, the thorax, shoulder blades and the arms till the tip of the fingers. Relax the muscles around the neck, the facial muscles, and the skull. Deep inhale and exhale. Exhale, pushing the air out of the body by lowering the shoulders, deflating the lungs, pushing the belly button towards the back. Feel the emptiness there. Slowly inhale first by inflating the stomach with the belly now inflated, then inflate the lungs. Push the shoulders slightly up. Feel the breath filling the lungs and the whole body. When you feel discomfort, then slowly exhale with shoulders pushed down, deflating the lungs and deflating the stomach with the belly button. Move as far behind to the back. Again, inhale using the free fall process, inflating the belly, then the lungs. The shoulders slightly up. If you fail to the full capacity, probably you can feel the breath moving at the level of the head through the facial muscles and the brain. Repeat that process slowly, mindful about the 3 steps in the breathing and sensing the breath flowing through our body. While doing the Om chanting, the universal sound, just feel the start of the sound. Generally, you'll feel it starting from the digestive region, moving gradually up, and when you come to the final part, it vibrates at the level of the brain. That's controlling the energy flow of the body, reestablishing the equilibrium of our systems throughout the body. Join the palms together, rub them gently, cover the eyes and open the eyes below the palms, transferring the energy to the facial muscles. So welcome back. Now we're going to the chapters of the Gita, and there's one way that writers have now started to look at the Gita. It's very interesting, analyzing each and every chapter and or giving a specific title to each and every chapter. Chapter 1, we find Arjun stepping down of the chariot. This is where he explains his problems, the wavering mind, and that is known as Arjun Vishada Yoga. It's the despondency of Arjun, the wavering mind, and if connecting the event or the situation, the word yoga is used just to join the dots there. So chapter 1 is Arjun Vishad Yoga. Connecting to the wavering mind of Arjunas. I linked it to that sutra, Patanjali Yoga Sutra, Vyadhi Stan Shanshay. That is the problem that we all face at some points in our life, where we have to take cutting decisions. And if we just don't give ourselves some moments of silence to analyze and to apply our knowledge to the situation, we'll be in that same point. Chapter 2 is known as Sankhya Yoga. I said yesterday the word Sankhya is from Sankhya, that is numbers, and it details the elements of this universe and links it to the various points of knowledge also. It's the yoga of wisdom. It's not a separate line which we tend to hear from people that मैं तो सांख्य योग practice करता हूँ, मैं तो कर्म योग practice करता हूँ, मैं तो राज योग practice करता हूँ. There's nothing which is bits and pieces like that. It's a whole, a combination. But unfortunately, we've been trying to play it wiser than what Sri Krishna and the rishis have told us. So Sankhya Yoga is the yoga of wisdom, the wisdom which starts being unfolded by Sri Krishna ji. Then chapter 3 is Karma Yoga, laying emphasis on action, the need to act. This is Karma Yoga, the yoga of action. Chapter 4 is Dhyan Karma Sannyasa Yoga. It's the wisdom of yoga in action and renunciation. That is, linking action and renunciation in the perspective of selfless Nishkam Seva, which flows from the second mantra of the last chapter of the Yajurveda, which says, Na karma lipyate nare. Just do our actions, don't get into the bondage of what will be the outcome of that. And if we use proper knowledge as wisdom and act accordingly, we'll get the best of results. But then don't chase the results. So that is Dhyan Karma Sannyas Yoga. Then we have Karma Sannyas Yoga, which goes now a bit further. It's the yoga of renunciation. The previous chapter was Dhyan, Karma, and Sannyas. So application of knowledge along with Karma and Sannyas. And now when we are aware of what we need to do, we are engaging in Karma. That is now doing the Karma in the way of renunciation. Then chapter 6 goes into Atma Sanyam Yoga, which is described by Western scholars as yoga of meditation. I think they've just taken the words from the Indian scholars and translated because it boils down to the same thing. Atma Sanyam is what leads to the meditative state. Chapter 7 is Dhyan Vidyan Yoga. Now the question is, Dhyan is knowledge, Vidyan is science. So where does science comes into Gita? Science, we tend to limit the definition of science to only laboratory experiences or things which we see. But spiritual science, as I said yesterday, is one of the most abstruse of sciences. It's something which we can feel, we can't see. And linking dhyan, karma, will achieve the realization of the purpose. So that's dhyan vidyan yoga. I said the science of language is linking the words, shabda artha sambandh, the words, the meanings, and within the context. That is one science. And this we can't see in the lab, we can only understand. And this is where, when we use knowledge for action towards realizing certain goals, that's also a science. That's why it's called Dhyan Vidyan Yoga. Chapter 8 is known as Akshar Brahma Yoga, the yoga of the absolute truth. And the yoga of the absolute truth talks about the importance of the divinity all around us, within us, and that divine guidance which we need to follow. Chapter 9 is about the Raj Vidya Raj Guhya Yoga. It unfolds the regal science, the royal secrets of life. Chapter 10 is the Vibhuti Yoga. If you've read the Patanjali Yoga Sutras, we find the Samadhi Pad and Sadhan Pad. The third one is the Vibhuti Pad, and the fourth is the Kaivalya Pad. So it's the yoga of the divine manifestations, the achievements that we can obtain by following the path of knowledge. Chapter 11 is Vishwa Rupa Darshan Yoga, the yoga vision of the cosmic form. And if we engage in the path of yoga, that is the really truly spiritual path, we'll be able to also unfold our own cosmic form, realizing the divinity within us. So that's Vibhuti Yoga. Vishwa Rupa Darshan Yoga is chapter 11, Yoga vision of the cosmic form, that is at realization. Chapter 12 is Bhakti Yoga, talking about the yoga of devotion. And I usually put it to people, if you want to understand devotion, in a very simple way, just understand who is a devoted child, who follows the guidance, the instructions of the parents, a devoted student who follows the guidance, the instructions of the teachers, the preceptors, of the tutors. So if we are devoted to God, really we have to follow the guidance, the instructions of God there. And if in the spirit of the Gita we say, okay, we are devoted to Sri Krishna, then we follow the guidance, the instructions that he's given in terms of the Gita. We don't become a devotee by chanting the Gita, but rather by applying it in our daily life. Chapter 13 is about Kshetra Kshetrajya Vibhaga Yoga. It talks about the field and its knower. So that's, I was talking about the identity crisis yesterday. So it talks about we shouldn't confound ourselves, that is, what we see and our own person. The seer doesn't confound himself with the seen. Chapter 14 is about Guna Traya Vibhaga Yoga. It talks about the three qualities of primordial matter. Matter in its original form, Sattva Rajatama. And if I link that to Patanjali Yoga Sutra, there's when it describes the various forms of dukkha, suffering, it says, Parinam Tap Sanskara Guna Vritti Virodha. Parinam means the consequences of the action of our actions. If they are bad, we are going to suffer. Tap dukkha is unforeseen circumstances. Parinam dukkha, one example would be, I've cooked some delicacies, some good food, and I've overeaten. I'm going to get indigestion. Yeah, I'm going to eat half kilo laddu every day, and at the end, I'll be facing obesity, diabetes, and all the things. That is parinam dukkha. Now, tap dukkha is unforeseen circumstances for which I am not responsible. I've got some guests, I've cooked the food, and then by waiting for it to cool down, उसमें छिपकली गिर गया या मक्खी पड़ गया. That is tap dukkha. So if I can say, okay, these happen in the course of activities, I can spare myself from that dukkha. Instead, I'll be focused on preparing something else because I know this has gone bad. So this is one example of tap dukkha. Then sanskar dukkha. I've been used to certain things. And when I no longer can get these things, this habit which has formed into me now starts aching. And this is what we see in COVID. People have been used to going out. Now suddenly they're told not to go out. That hurts. So yes, sanskar dukkha from the practical point of view. Then gun vritti virodha. One example which I often use is take a ripe red apple, shining, satugun pradhan. I keep it in the open air for 4 or 5 days. It starts shriveling. Activity has taken predominance. That is, Rajasic Gun now is presiding there. And if I still keep it there for another 10 days, it starts leaching. It rots, smells, and I'll find that humidity is all around, start leaking, and that's really putrefying. That is tamogun pradhan. So it talks about guna traya vibhaga yoga. And these qualities also, if I am more sattvic in my life, my thoughts, my words, and my actions would be more shining, more brilliant. And if it's rajasic, that is going to be less brilliant. Though I can be more forceful in one way because of the activities, but that will rule for only some time. Sattvic will rule for most of the time. But the Rajasic gunas, people sooner or later will discover that this is more Rajasic gunas. And Tamasic gunas is sluggishness, indolence. There's no willingness to do anything good. So that's Guna Traya Vibhaga Yoga. Chapter 14 is about that. Chapter 15 is about Purushottam Yoga, of the Supreme Self. And how do we align ourselves with that? Is by cultivating the virtues. And that takes time. So we have to have lots of patience for that. It's not a question like the mushrooms which grow overnight after rainfall. बादल और बरसात के बाद कुकुंडी दिखते हैं ना खेतों में. It's not like that. We have to be patient. In the same line as Satu Dirkala Nirantara Satkara Sevito Drir Bhumi. Dirkal, long time. Nirantar, regular, constant practice. Satkara Sevito, lots of love, compassion, devotion, dedication. And Fir Drir Bhumi will stand on firm grounds. Then chapter 16 is about Deva Asura Sampad Vibhag Yoga. Spelling out the differences of the divine and the demonic. Deva Asura. Deva is the divine qualities, the virtuous qualities, and Asura is the demonic or the negative aspects of it. Then the last, after that, chapter 17 comes to Shraddha Traya Vibhaga Yoga. We'll be able to understand what is Shraddha and what are the threefold faith. Shraddha Traya Vibhaga Yoga. And the last chapter is entitled Moksha Sannyas Yoga. Liberation through renunciation. That's the beauty of how modern writers have been able to compile these topics. But remember, the word yoga in each and every chapter is joined there is not a system in itself. It's just linking the subject matter so that we can apply it in our daily life. The most important part of it, when we see yoga there, it's linking, joining, yoking, and yoking the knowledge to our life. Any questions on that? Because as from tomorrow, we'll go on the chapters directly, and wherever it links to Patanjali Yoga, which I've unfolded today, we'll go on that. So,
question, Divya ji, Alka ji, Anuradha ji, anyone?
just unmute yourself and put the question, please. Otherwise, I'll leave it to Dr. Anjum for the add-ons till someone comes with a question. Anjum ji, please take over.
Divya, would you like to ask something?
No, not today.
Okay.
It was